Just when I thought was out. Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. Hi, I'm Nick. This is 10 Minutes with Nick, and today we're back on the dating train. We boarded, they clipped our ticket, we're back on it. I didn't want to get back on the train. Tried to get off the train. Not the dating train in general, the talking about dating on the internet train, which is ironically a much longer and much more violent train. It is a much more rigorous train. It requires you to have a larger amount of BS tolerance than actual dating, because everybody on the internet is an expert and it hurts your ears. It just assaults the eardrums. But first things first, as always, thank you to everyone who subscribes. There's 18 of you, which is really cool. If you like what I'm saying, subscribe. If you don't like what I'm saying, well, that's a shame. Feels like a you problem, but that's okay. We all have our issues. Anyway, back on to what I was saying. There's this concept floating around the many dating discussion communities. It exists. It's out there. It's floating in the ether. The internet ether, not the actual ether. Most of these people have never been outside. But there's this concept of high-value men and women. High-value men and women. Now, what is the definition of high-value man or woman? Frankly, nobody ever answers that question. The term is just sort of thrown out there like you should know it, like you should know that gravity exists or the fact that the earth is round. It's just sort of an assumed fact. Now, if anybody ever makes an argument to you and uses an assumed fact, don't buy the argument. If somebody says something and they say it with such authority that they don't need to justify the facts they are using, then you may safely assume what they are saying is not fact. It is something they read once in a magazine that they don't actually know to be a fact. Now, as always, important caveat. If, for example, a scientist were to walk up to you and describe something in the field in which that scientist is degreed, credentialed, whatever, you can perhaps assume that that individual knows the facts about which they speak. However, if a doctor of philosophy were to walk up to you and begin a rigorous discussion of, and I do mean doctor of philosophy, not just PhD, I mean a doctor of philosophy, were to begin a rigorous discussion on the growth of mushrooms, I would perhaps discount that opinion. Now, having said all that, there are many internet experts out there who, it should be noted, are often trying to sell you something, who claim this term high-value man or woman, and they use it to justify, hey, if you're, why should you get to pursue a high-value man or woman? What they should be. The one I saw today was high-value women want to be chosen, not chased. Chosen, not chased. Now, that's a silly argument in and of itself, but we'll pursue that in a moment. I'm going to focus for now on the ridiculousness of the term high-value man or woman. How does one define a high-value man or woman? If you are in the red pill community, yes, we've gone back to that old chestnut. If you're in the red pill community, a high-value man is a man who makes over, I think, $100,000 a year, is physically fit by whatever definition you use for that term, and is in general one of a very select group of men who are pursued by 90% of women. Red pill community, all about quote-unquote breaking the matrix. Part of breaking the matrix is realizing that if you are not a high-value man, you mostly do not get the attention of, as they say, females. Now, beyond sort of the denigrating posture of resorting to calling women or girls females, which is how one would describe the I don't really know how to say this, but how one would describe, say, a dog's biological sex, you would call a dog male or female. I don't think we should resort to calling human beings male or female. It feels denigrating to the humanity of the situation. We're left to sort of question this term high value man. Now, the assumption that that is a high value man is sort of on its face silly. Yes, certainly that man has a lot of economic value. He makes a lot more money than most of the world around him. But why does that necessarily make him high value, right? What about that makes him high value? By the same token, sorry, I'm an actor and I have to check my phone if an email comes in. By the same token, someone just sort of blurts out into the world, high value women want to be chosen, not chased. Not a terrible concept, but what does it mean? I don't necessarily have a problem with the concept itself, right? Chosen, not chased. It sort of gives off this vibe of like, oh, you're not treating someone like an object. Well, you're still, I don't know. I got to think about that a little bit because you still end up sort of treating the individual like an object to be pulled off a shelf at the grocery store. But it gets closer to really what, in an ideal world, probably dating would look like, which is that there is a get to know you period where you're being intentional and all that good stuff. But you're also just sort of getting to know the person, who they are on the inside. And yet, even so, we discuss it gets ruined by the fact that we say only high value women want to be chosen, not chased. Why only high value women? Also, how do we cut off the definition of a high value woman? Do we mean a woman who has extremely high values? Whose values? Are Muslim women high value? And if Muslim women are high value, does that necessarily mean that Christian women, because it is a different religious philosophy, Christian Judy women, Jewish women, atheist women, are they necessarily not high value? It's a nebulous term that just makes someone sound like they really know what they're talking about and like they have the key to the women you actually want in your world, and thus follows the product that they're trying to sell. Dating advice. Ladies and gentlemen, you can get my dating advice for free. Now, it's worth exactly what you're paying for it. But honestly, the same advice that you're getting from me is what the person you're going to pay to give you. You're going to pay somebody else to give this advice to you. And again, I did a podcast on this. Be careful who you take advice from. I am a single man in his 30s living in North Hollywood. Take my advice with a big-ass grain of salt. Go back in my podcasts and learn why you should take my advice with a big-ass grain of salt. These are my thoughts on dating. If you use them and they work, fantastic. If they don't work, well, I gave you the disclaimer. But I'm also not charging you for these thoughts. They're free and they come right off the top of my dome. Folks, be more concerned about the fact that these terms, high value man, high value woman, are being bandied about as though there is some kind of delineating factor in our society between men and women who deserve to be dated and men and women who do not deserve to be dated. Everybody at some point deserves to find love. Whether they find it or not is the other question, but they deserve it. And again, if you come at me with like what about bad people? Okay. Bad people probably deserve to be loved too. Inside of a prison, depending on what they did, but they find love in there. Not the love they expected, but the love nonetheless. Be careful when people use nebulous terms that just make them sound smarter than they appear to be. Ask them for a definition of those terms, and if they say, well, you should know that term, walk away, save the money. And in the dating world, just know In the dating world, the rules are meant to be broken. Every single one of them has been violated at some point, and it worked out for somebody. And again, that is why, as I said in another podcast, you can't take anybody's advice in the dating world, perhaps especially the advice presented here today. The only advice you should take from today is that if somebody offers you dating advice and tells you that if you want the high value man or woman of your dreams, then all you have to do is pay me to find him or her, walk away, save the money, go to a Bills game. I know I will. I'm Nick. This is 10 Minutes with Nick. If you like what I said, like and subscribe. If you didn't like what I said, well, you can't stop me. I mean, I suppose you could, but it wouldn't work. I'm too clever. I'm Nick. This is 10 Minutes with Nick. Have a great day.